Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Thorne, and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast. You join us days after the biggest event of the year, or the biggest two events of the year, Christmas time for aviation aficionados. We are talking about the Australian Aviation Summit and the Australian Aviation Awards. Before we talk about this, I'll introduce my co-host, Jake Nelson. Jake, how are you?
I'm fine, Adam. Does this explain why you're dressed like it's, Christmas time?
Oh, that's not nice. That's not nice.
A glorious, beautiful first week of spring, and you're sitting here in our lovely climate-controlled studio in a what's that? A parka?
That's not a parka. It's a hoodie.
It's a fleece-lined hoodie.
You've gone straight in with the knife there. That is vicious. I think I look pretty good, to be honest. And I have the temperature is dropping a little bit tonight. It's going to get down to 15 degrees. So this is very appropriate attire.
So your average summer's day in London?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and this would be appropriate. Well, I don't know. That's really knocked me for six. Whoa. Anyway, we had the Australian Aviation Summit and the Australian Aviation Awards. Jake, talk me a little bit through the summit. You hosted a few panels. What was your experience? This is the first time you've experienced this?
It's the first time anyone's experienced this because it was the first Australian Aviation Summit. No, it was a great inaugural event. I think it built us a really strong foundation for more summits going forward. We had some fantastic guests. We had a keynote address from Rob Sharp, the new interim CEO of Air Services Australia, talking about innovation in air traffic management. I chatted to him afterwards, actually, at the awards. We were seated next to each other at the table. Very, very smart man. And I'm not just saying that because he agreed with a lot of my opinions. Very, 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 very smart man, experienced in the aviation sector. He was at Virgin, he was at Tiger Air. He's had all sorts of positions in the sector, and it was really interesting to hear him speak on what Air Services is doing around modernizing air traffic control. We of course had your fireside chat, Adam, with Simon Hickey. New in geological terms, the CEO of Western Sydney International Airport, talking about how that airport's going, and he's saying it's on track to open in 2026. You've seen inside that airport.
Yes, I've seen inside it. It does look like it's nearly ready. And I said to him on stage, I wouldn't be so cruel as to say to you, can you kind of guarantee us it will open in 2026? And he was like, no, it's opening then. They are very confident. So, yeah, I think they seem on track. He was very passionate about aviation. I thought he genuinely seemed to love it. He had an interesting background because he was at the Qantas Group for like 11 years, left the chaos of aviation for 5 or 6 years, and for somehow has been dragged back to take this quite.
There is no escape.
There is no escape. There is.
We had some great panel discussions as well. I hosted a couple of panels. I moderated a panel on the white paper with Christian Bennett from Virgin Australia, Emily McMillan from the TW, and Jessie Suskin from Wing, talking about what the white paper got right and wrong. I think the general consensus was consumer protections were sort of on the right track, but there was some disagreement over labour protections in the white paper, with Emily saying that it's not quite there yet. And we had a fantastic discussion around diversity in the aviation sector, and what we could do to promote that. With of course the starring guests on that panel, including Deborah Laurie,
aviation royalty, Deborah Laurie.
She was part of a panel with three amazing ladies who we spoke to at great length about how we can promote more diversity in the aviation sector. So a big shout out and thank you to all our guests and panelists, and to anyone who attended the summit.
Yes, there's two special shout-outs I'd like to make. One's to Angela Garvey, who won our overall excellence award at the Australian Aviation Awards in the evening. This was kind of our Champion of Champions Awards. We had Angela on our podcast a couple of years ago now, or 18 months or so ago. We're going to look to see if I can get her back on the podcast shortly. I'd also like to take a very special minute to thank my favourite person who I met that whole day, Victor Poddy. Victor Poddy is a legend. Victor Poddy is the man that takes half of our photos for Australian Aviation. I've been emailing and chatting to him for years. That was the first time I actually met him. Victor, if you're listening, if you're watching, we love you. Thank you so much for all you do.
Yes, and thank you again. Once a big thank you to all our panelists and all our speakers. This was a huge sort of. Well, I don't want to say it was a huge risk because we were pretty confident that it was going to be amazing. Yeah. But coming along to an event like this in its first year is just a very it's a brave thing to ask of our speakers. So thank you to all of our speakers and panelists. Thank you to the speakers on the white paper panel who I mentioned before. Thank you as well again to Deborah Laurie and Annie Daly from Aviation Aerospace Australia and Maria Reitano, all three of the guests on the diversity panel. And Adam, what was your favorite panel that you moderated?
My favorite panel is we did a panel on sustainability, and we had Daniel Dock from Virgin, we had Boeing there, and I thought we just talked quite candidly about, are we going to hit this 2050 target? How realistic is it? What needs to be done from a government point of view? How big a difference is this next generation of aircraft going to make? So it's very, very kind of useful, intriguing to be able to hear from the people directly making this happen. And also talking about, the amount we need to invest in SAF production facilities. And what essentially the panel kind of discussed is that if we want to get to a situation where most flights do have SAF, sustainable aviation fuels, mixed in with them, we need roughly, I think, about 26 plants. And obviously at the moment we've got none. We hope we're going to have one in a couple of years. And also the kind of conclusion of the panel is, can we get to a kind of 2050 net zero, reach that target? And the conclusion was, yes, we can, but if we want to hit that, we've got to get cracking. The kind of window to get moving is closing. So that was very, very interesting as well. Yeah. Very, very good. I would say
we're looking forward to next year's summit and awards already.
Exactly. If you want to buy tickets, you can't. You're too early. You'll have to wait a bit. You missed the boat.
If you want to buy tickets to this year's summit and awards, again, you can't do that anymore.
No, you can't do anything. It's over. No, it's over. You missed out.
But and congratulations as well to all our award winners. We had some fantastic award winners. We had our domestic airline of the year, of course, Nexus Airlines. Our international airline of the year, AirAsia. We had Cairns Airport Takeout Airport of the year, and we had a lot of fantastic individual award winners as well.
Yes, and just finally before we wrap, a very special thank you to our two principal partners, UNSW Sydney for our awards and Leidos for our summit. Without their support, we wouldn't have been able to host it.
We love UNSW Sydney and we love their School of Aviation.
We certainly do. Right.
We are indifferent to their school of staying on the ground.
Yes, no, I don't think they have one, strangely. Right, anyway, let's move on and talk about the week's news. We had, just to start this off, Jake, the first set of financial results that Qantas has produced since Qantas has had a new CEO. How are they going, Jake?
So this is the first set of annual results for Vanessa Hudson, and this was $2.8 billion profit before tax. Now, this is down on financial year 23, which was $2.465 billion, but up on pre-COVID $1.3 billion. Qantas has said that this sort of dip is because of lower fares, caused by capacity increases, as well as increased spending on customer initiatives. Hudson has said that the results show the underlying strength of the wider group's portfolio. They've benefited from increased corporate and resources travel, ongoing high demand for international premium seats. She said that Jetstar delivered its highest result as it grew to meet increased demand from price-sensitive leisure travelers and saw the benefits from its new aircraft. These would be the A321 Neo LRs, which have been rolling out across the network.
It's interesting because Vanessa Hudson has a kind of a tightrope to walk here, because it's almost like if you make too much money, you get stick, particularly when the airline, or has been in the past, under fire for how it treats customers. Obviously, if she doesn't make enough money, she gets stick as well. So in a sense, if you can come in and make a little bit less than last year, their record year, then that's a pretty good result. It was interesting, a lot of the mainstream press kind of led on this line that the numbers were 16% down on 2022, 2023, but they're still significantly up on pre-COVID 2019. So this is still one of the biggest profits in the airline's history. And again, as they say, they have to balance that with the amount extra they spent on these kind of customer initiatives. But overall, that would seem like a very strong start. It almost feels like Vanessa's sort of shtick is that, unlike her predecessor, she isn't going to be out there, in the media talking a lot. She's going to keep her head down and get on with the job. It does appear that she's doing a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, you'd have to think so, Adam. And credit to Vanessa Hudson. I think you produced an opinion piece earlier in the year who basically just saying, she was doing well at fixing the problems and getting on with business.
Yeah, exactly. Right, anyway, they've made a load of money. They're doing all right. What are we going to talk about next, Jake?
Well, we've got Qantas weren't the only results to have come out in the last week. And so I think we've got to give a congratulations to Alliance Airlines, which has seen its biggest financial year ever. Now, obviously, this is nowhere near Qantas numbers, but $86.3 million.
Still pretty decent, though.
Yeah, in statutory profit before tax, that's up 65%. Operational revenue up 25%. Flight hours are up as well. It's largely it's wet leasing services are driving this growth. Flight hours for its wet leasing contracts with Qantas and Virgin up 28,000 hours. Record wet leasing revenues. And Alliance is expecting. It's expecting the rest of those 30 E190s that are earmarked with Qantas to be all called up in the first half of this financial year. So Alliance has this contract with Qantas for options on 30 E190s. So far it's used 26, and the remaining 4, it says, pretty good chance that they're going to be called up for in the first 6 months of this financial year.
So Alliance, for those that aren't aware, were kind of the big success story of COVID. And I believe one of the reasons for this is that they were able to, there was obviously huge demand for any kind of charter. And also I think they were kind of able to adapt their aircraft or adapt their service for that kind of COVID isolation period, when it was all 2 months, 2 meters away and put your masks on and stuff. So they were able to pivot very, very adeptly during that. And then I think it was mid-COVID or during the end of COVID when they put in this order for a load of Eve-jets, which has kind of future-proofed them. But to put this into perspective, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head the amount of profit Virgin said they made in the previous financial year. I think it was like a few hundred million. When you consider the size of Alliance, what are they doing, 80 million?
Something like that.
Yeah, that is an extraordinary amount of money to make. So they're probably
86 million.
86 million. So probably the most shrewdly run airline in Australia.
Absolutely, and credit to Alliance. They've found their niche and they're really sort of going for it. We've got National Jet Express as well. They've just signed a lease on another Dash 8, their 10th Dash 8, and they seem to be pretty well insulated from all the troubles at Rex. But National Jet Express, these and Alliance, these charter airlines and FIFO airlines are doing pretty well for themselves, and we see that as well at Perth Airport, where most of the growth at Perth Airport has been driven by these regional and FIFO operations.
Well, on that note, I think we'll go for a break.
Whoa,
you're doing this again.
Before we go for a break, how about we get the rest of the results out of the way?
Host in name only. Go on. Go on.
We had one more set of results because Virgin obviously is not publicly listed, and Rex is deferring its results while it's under administration. But Air New Zealand across the ditch has also seen a profit for the 2023-24 financial year, but its profit was cut by more than half from last year. So it posted 222 million New Zealand dollars in profit, which is about 35 cents. No, it's about 204 million Australian dollars.
Right.
That's down from 574 million NZ or 530 Australian dollars, 530 million Australian dollars in financial year 23.
It's all silly money, dingo dollars, Kiwi dollars. Yeah. I mean, it's not real money.
Yeah, well, it's easy to mistake New Zealand coins for Australian coins, isn't it? A bit too easy. What are they planning? Anyway, they basically said that passenger revenue has been up.
Yeah.
But the economy in New Zealand has been tougher. There have been these maintenance issues on its Airbus Neo and Boeing Dreamliner aircraft. There's high inflation. There's competition from US carriers. So they're still making money. They still made a profit, but the profits are down because of all these economic headwinds. And this was something that they'd sort of forecast in the first half of the year. They're saying the second half is looking a bit rocky for us.
So a lot of it, when you talk about those issues with aircraft, servicing parts, etc., this is all the supply chain issues that is still the lingering headache from COVID, because effectively you've got skill shortage kind of globally in the industry. You've got still the kind of the issues from the war in Ukraine, fuel costs, all of this kind of stuff, and it's still filtering down and really hurting airlines. It's interesting there, Air New Zealand obviously being considerably smaller than Qantas, and New Zealand being considerably smaller than Australia means you're even more. It's almost more of a delicate situation. It's interesting we've seen that huge effect it's had on them. Obviously, these supply chain issues were a part of what went wrong at Bonza, but part of what went wrong with Rex. So
which we touch on in the latest issue of the Australian Aviation Magazine, which should have hit your doorsteps by now.
It should have done. Okay, welcome back. So as Jake alluded to there, the new issue of the Australian Aviation Magazine, God willing, will be landing on your doorstep. If it hasn't already, should be imminently, and we will be uploading this online in the coming days. Jake, tell us we'll talk a little bit about the issue in a second. Jake, talk me through what you wrote about this issue. Was it any good? I didn't read it. I just said I did, and it was good, but I didn't really. I'm busy.
That is a vote of confidence that I don't think I've had in the past, Adam, from any of my previous employers. Look, this month I wrote a feature on ultra long haul travel, because you've got Project Sunrise coming in 2026, and of course you've got all of these long, super long distance flights departing. Qantas from Perth to London and Rome and Paris non-stop on the Dreamliners. You've got these Dreamliner flights heading out from Sydney, Sydney, Auckland, New York. That's Qantas and Air New Zealand both doing those. And Air New Zealand is, of course, bringing out its Skynest sleeping pods, God willing, sometime next year, which are designed to make all this ultra-long-haul travel more comfortable for economy class passengers. And so we had a look at the figures, and we spoke to we spoke to Air New Zealand. We've spoken to Crystal Zhang from RMIT, who fantastic source. If you need to know anything about aviation, she is the lady to call. We've spoken to Perth Airport. We've spoken to all these people to figure out what's the go with ultra long haul travel. How big can we expect it to get? Is the stopover dead? And I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say that rumors of the death of the stopover have been greatly exaggerated.
So one of the points of the feature, and I did actually read it, is that it's not necessarily going to kill the stopover. It's more another option, and in future there will still be people that will prefer to stretch their legs, particularly in economy. So perhaps the answer is it's not going to be one or the other, but we are going to see a huge explosion of these things in the next few years. What was also interesting as well that you touched upon is that Australia and New Zealand, obviously, what I say when you think about it, are now world leaders in this, or they will be world leaders in this, which does make sense because we're so far away.
As we were touching on, we're so small and far away. We were touching on before the break. We're Australia and New Zealand so small, so far away from everywhere else that we really need sort of super long haul travel to get anywhere. Professor Zhang was talking about basically most of our flights from Sydney and Melbourne are at least medium to long haul internationally, because there's just so much distance even from our neighbors in Asia. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see when Project Sunrise launches how well that does and how well that niche can grow, because it is a niche ultimately. I mean, most people aren't probably aren't going to mind unless they're, high-powered business travelers or, in a hurry to get somewhere for whatever reason. Most people aren't going to mind, touching down in Singapore or Dubai or wherever and having a chance to stretch their legs on the way, even if that adds a bit of time to their journey. That said, I'm pretty sure that we had a friend, my partner and I had a friend over from Germany in July, and they flew Scoot all the way from Berlin via Athens and Singapore, and they may not have minded getting here a bit quicker, I would imagine.
No.
Especially on a low-cost carrier. Nothing against Scoot. I'm sure they're lovely, but it is a low-cost carrier.
Rumour has it, well, I don't say rumour has it, I've seen the evidence. They don't actually have TVs in the, you've got to bring your own iPad, basically.
Yeah, well, that's something that a lot of, I think Jetstar is looking to do that as well, as it sort of revamps the cabins on its 787s. It decreases the weight. Makes the plane lighter, makes it cheaper to run. You don't have to worry about the entertainment system's constantly breaking. Basically, everyone has, a tablet or a phone that they can, connect to the Wi-Fi nowadays. And so the idea is, well, you don't really need a screen on the back of a seat if you don't want one.
No. And we've also, I've had written a feature looking at the demise of Bonza and kind of exactly what went wrong. And we were kind of able to do this in a unique way because throughout kind of all the periods of Bonza's history, we were interviewing Tim Jordan, the CEO, and obviously covering all these stories ourselves. So it's a kind of like a timeline where we chart the narrative of it. One of the most extraordinary things about this is that since Bonza, which is now was liquidated formally a couple of months ago, 6 weeks ago, obviously got into administration, I think it was April now.
Yeah.
We've heard virtually nothing from 777 Partners whatsoever. In fact, they've said almost nothing publicly about anything in the last kind of 3 or 4 months. They've pretty much almost vanished. But 777 Partners are a big deal. They've got their fingers in an awful lot of pies. It's a huge portfolio that they've got. I would imagine we're going to hear a lot more of this in the coming months. But certainly the demise of Bonza, I think there's still a lot more we need to know. It's very unfortunate because at the moment, with Bonza being liquidated and stuff, it's very hard for Tim Jordan, for the other senior execs to come and talk about what's happened. There was an investigation that the administrators, I suppose now liquidated, did. I think you're going to hear more kind of follow-up from that. At the moment, they're very much hamstrung into what they can say. I would imagine by the end of the year, though, we will hear a lot more. It's still desperately sad that it was almost like the world declared that Bonza didn't work, but the evidence suggests it very much did work. So we've got that. We've also got a short interview with Google Wing, or their delivery drones, and this comes after they launched operations in Melbourne, which is the biggest city in the world that they operate from. What else have we got in the issue? What else? We've got all your usuals. We've got registered traffic,
opinion. We've got
opinion.
Did
you write an opinion?
I did write an opinion piece,
read it.
which I alluded to last week.
Yes.
Talking about the situation that Rex has found itself in, and there have been suggestions that the government should maybe take an equity stake in Rex. I sort of examined, is it time for the government to be taking more of a hand in this sort of thing, a TAA 2.0, as I kind of put it.
Okay, welcome back. So we talked there a little bit about the magazine. We've talked previously about the last rung of financial results. Still got plenty more news to get through. Jake, what's up next?
We were talking earlier about Qantas's results, dropping on the same day as the Qantas results. First of all, we got news that Qantas's own A320s are going to be coming in to the A321 XLRs. They haven't landed yet.
No.
The A321 XLRs are going to, of course, be replacing the 737-800s. And they've got flight training now underway in this whiz-bang new simulator.
Is that what it's called, a whiz-bang new simulator?
No, it's called the CAE 7000 XR Series A320 simulator, which is very, very, very high-tech sounding.
Can I just say, and I don't mean to jump in on you there, Qantas, Vanessa, if you are listening, we'd love to go check this out. Now, obviously, don't use the time to train the pilots to be training us. I don't want anyone...
we would somehow cause a fatal accident without even being in a plane, 100%. A real one.
But if for some reason you'd like to invite... Joe, you'd be good at this, wouldn't you? You play like your Xbox, haven't you?
Yes.
Is it Xbox, right? So you're good at computer games, right? I haven't played computer games in 20 years, but I reckon get you in there and see if you can land it, take off, land, all that kind of stuff. Maybe do some loop-de-loops.
What's that statistic? How many people think that they could land a plane?
Yeah, but you probably could. You're Australian Aviation, like you breathe this stuff.
But yeah, they've ordered 28 of these new of these A321 XLRs. The first one is expected to arrive in April 2025, and so flight training is underway. Another thing that Qantas touched on was a pay rise for more than 3,000 cabin crew. So they came to a deal with the Flight Attendants Association of Australia. There's new conditions and pay increases on the A350-1000s. They've reached a deal with the short-haul cabin crew to support these 3 same job, same pay applications before the Fair Work Commission. So, all in all, it's 800 short-haul cabin crew and 2,500 international crew that are looking at pay rises.
More dingo dollars.
Which is great news for the flight attendants. And so the FAAA is looking to vote on this deal by the end of October. A story that Qantas probably doesn't want too much attention on is, but we're going to do it anyway because it's funny. There was a glitch a couple of weeks ago that we reported on where this technical glitch resulted in around 300 passengers booking first-class seats for 85% off.
But I mean, I have huge sympathy with Qantas here because let's just say you book a ticket and it's like 20-30% cheaper than what you would expect. I get that. That's the airline's fault. I think the passengers are entitled to get what they paid for. If it's 85% off, you book this and it's a mistake. You know straight away this is a glitch, right?
Yeah, it's look, they don't. I think according to the law, they don't have to fly these passengers first class. The prices were advertised clearly in error. They've blamed a coding error for this. These were first class tickets to the US that remained up for 8 hours before being corrected. The seats usually cost around $20,000 to $29,000. They were on sale for $4,350, which a real bargain. That said, a Qantas spokesperson has said that passengers who book these tickets will be instead offered seats in business class.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's still a 65% discount from the normal price. So
that's too generous. I'd have been like, tough, you can go in cattle class.
Well, that's why you're not in charge of Qantas, Adam.
Well, you think he had reputational issues before? This guy don't give a damn.
Yeah, it's probably a savvy PR move on Qantas's part to, at least give these. Obviously, they got to give these passengers refunds or offer them something nice to sort of smooth things over. So I think too
nice for me.
A nice bit of damage control on Qantas's part. Now, there were a couple more stories. This is one we haven't reported on, but there's been a lot of buzz, and I don't know why. But Koala Airlines.
Oh, yeah, right. So, Koala, talk me through the legend of Koala Airlines, because I remember hearing about Koala Airlines years ago. For some reason, they just seem to have come back.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly has sparked this new interest in Koala Airlines. Maybe it's, bonds are going under and Rex being in administration, but apparently this outfit, Koala Airlines, is looking to fly 737 MAX 8s in some alternative manner to how the big carriers are doing it. I don't know what it is they're planning. They haven't really released a detailed business plan or anything beyond some renders of planes. It's a weird story.
It's like drop bears.
Yeah, it's kind. Except drop bears, of course, are real. But Koala, I'm not sure what Koala Airlines' deal is, or if they have a deal at all. Apparently the company that owns it has an AOC for something else. But what you've been following Koala Airlines for years, Adam. What's your read on the situation?
Yeah, I remember hearing about Koala Airlines years and years and years ago, but nothing actually seems to ever happen. What I would say to Bill Asling, I'm on their website now. Bill Asling, the founding CEO, come on our podcast. we want to do an interview with you. If Koala Airlines is real, then we're absolutely happy to have you and talk about it very openly. We're not going to kind of try and trip you up. But is this actually real? Is it happening? We'd love to have you to talk about it. But at the moment, it feels like there's very few actual concrete details other than that there is a series of apparent executives who are holding jobs here. We don't know how many airlines they've got. We don't know how many planes they've got. We don't know who's backing them. We don't really know anything, to be honest. The website, I would say, looks a little bit shabby. No offense, but it doesn't strike me as something that is going to happen. I remember when Bonza launched. It was clear from day one they had financial backing. They had the branding. They had a website. There was and they had somebody in Tim Jordan, who was a very senior executive that worked at Virgin Blue, held various senior positions
He'd
around the world.
Launched a low-cost carrier over in
Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
So there was an element, obviously didn't work out in the end, but there was an element of that you could look at this and see this was a concrete thing that was going to happen. We don't necessarily see a similar thing with Koala Airlines. But yeah, Koala, if you would want to get in touch, we'll absolutely talk to you. I'm not entirely convinced, but maybe I could be proved wrong.
There is one more story that I just wanted to touch on.
Go on.
It's not a major story or anything,
no,
but it is funny,
okay.
At least in my opinion. So Junyao Airlines, Junyao Air, this Shanghai-based carrier. It's one of the biggest privately owned airlines in China. Now they are putting on these new services from Shanghai to Melbourne and to Sydney. And what was funny about this story was Melbourne Airport has puts out a release saying that it will be the first Junyao service into Australia. Laurie Argus, the CEO of Melbourne Airport, has said, this will be a great boost for Victoria. It's a vote of confidence by Junyao in Victoria and in Melbourne. These fantastic services will be starting on the 19th of December. A few days afterwards, we get a release from Sydney Airport. Junyao Airlines is coming to Sydney. It's going to be operating flights starting the 17th of December, 2 days ahead of Melbourne. So Sydney has sort of snuck in and pipped Melbourne to the post. Now, this is not a particularly important story, not a particularly huge story. It does boost Sydney and Melbourne's Chinese capacity for sure.
And we get to sock one to those scum in Melbourne
levels. Well, that's it. That's it. As a red-blooded, true blue, patriotic Sydney-sider, I just wanted to touch on this because I find it very funny.
They've lost again, haven't they? They're losing everything. They're hopeless.
They don't have an airport rail.
No,
they don't have.
Nothing.
They do have Sky buses. We got to give them that.
They do have Sky buses.
We love you, Melbourne Airport. We love everything you do, and please don't take offense. We just find this very funny.
Right, so they've lost. I must say, looking at the how do you say it? Junyao
Air.
Junyao Air. Lovely livery.
Yeah, it's very
livery.
pretty.
Very pretty.
But yeah, so Junyao is going to be flying 4 times a week into Sydney starting the 17th of December, and it will be flying 3 times a week into Melbourne starting on the 19th of December. So we beat them as well on frequency.
Excellent. Right, have we got any more news to talk about before we wrap up? Before I try and wrap up the show and you go, no, you can't, which is usually how these things go down.
Well, look, I think that's probably about it, other than we do hope those astronauts come down soon. That was trapped up there on the Starline on the Boeing Starliner. Apparently, there has been confirmation like a week or two ago that they will be coming down with SpaceX.
They will be coming back.
Pretty embarrassing for Boeing.
It's very unfortunate. So, I mean, there's 2 ways that we're looking at it. This is quite embarrassing. It is a bit of a PR nightmare because they were meant to be at the International Space Station for a week. By the time they get back with SpaceX, it'll have been there 8 months.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like when you live in London and you get an Australian person. It's like, can I stay on your couch for a few days? And 8 months later, you're still trying to get rid of them. Very embarrassing. I don't think the astronauts are too bothered. You'd rather have 8 months rather than a week. But I mean, so it looks bad on Boeing. But also, as kind of NASA said, space is hard and test flights are by their nature very, very difficult. Ironically, they would probably consider the mission overall a success in the fact that the capsule got there, brought 2 people along with it. They believe it. They effectively have cleared it to go back to Earth with astronauts on in an emergency. So they're kind of 95% sure that if they attempted a journey, it would be fine. But obviously, they don't want to take that 5% risk. So it is overall, it looks bad on Boeing, but it is actually, when you look at it, a lot more understandable.
Well, and you know, as Mark Humphries, our fantastic MC at the Australian Aviation Awards, said, these poor astronauts are now in a situation where they're relying for their ride home on Elon Musk. So that's probably not great news for them.
No. Well, there was a great headline in one of the British newspapers, and it's like, you know, Elon Musk, you know, to save astronauts on ISS, and I did imagine Elon himself, you know, in the fairing of the SpaceX rocket, going up there to personally save them.
That's a nice image, as long as we didn't have to bring him back.
No, I mean, I love the great man. I love Elon. And how are you going with that 3,000-word profile on Elon Musk? I keep on telling you to write.
Well, look, every time I try, a red mist kind of covers my eyes. And I do come out of it with like 3,000 extra words written, you know, every single time. But none of them are printable in our magazine.
No. Right, that is probably all we've got time for. You sure you're going to let me finish the show? Sure.
It's always an exciting experience to work out whether I will, isn't it, Adam?
Not really. It's just humiliating. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Jake.
Thank you, Adam.
And thank you very much for listening. And we will be back at the same time next week. But for now, goodbye.